Hello and welcome to the Time Trek podcast. My name is Antonio Panella. We're here with Mohammed Abu Bakr, and today we're going to be discovering and talking a little bit about the future of work and what that looks like for all of us. If you have a chance, please subscribe to our channel, the Time Trek podcast. What we try to do is dive into topics about what the future may hold in many different respects, from new to new technologies. And today we're to be talking a little bit about new industries. So, Abu, any ideas that occurred to you to kind of kick off this conversation?
Hey, Antonio, good morning to you. I think this is a wonderful topic to discuss, and I'm looking forward to our conversation. A lot of things that we can talk about, especially the breadth of this topic is so huge that you can talk about medicine, you can talk about artificial intelligence, human survival for the next 100 years, how there's going to be a cultural change in the humans when all this connected technologies come into picture. So yeah, looking forward to this conversation.
Awesome, awesome. And so, what really grabbed me about this conversation, and as we were kind of like planning out what's our next talk, was the idea that I'm putting my first son now in a Montessori school, and when I first sat down for the introduction and sort of like interview that they do before to get him in, was they asked me, what is it that you want from your child? And that in that instant, I sort of like time in my mind, and I think the class of 2041. And I think 2040, in this world of artificial intelligence, like becoming a part of every aspect of so many different industries that, they are going to just drastically improve them. And, considering all that, the first things they sort of mentioned was, do you want your kid to go to an Ivy League school? Do you want them to? And in that instant, I said, you know, I think one of the most important things that we're going to have to fix, not only for the children up and coming, but for all of us in the work industry in the next 10, 20, 30 years, we're going to have to really develop a deep understanding of, dealing. I mean, initially is teamwork, right? We have to inspire each other and understand how to leverage technologies, of course, how to really become good teammates, how to understand in more depth psychology of human beings and connect more. And I think that artificial intelligence, a lot of new discoveries to us and help us, whether it's understanding new physics or understanding the world better, or making manufacturing easier, or helping doctors, perform surgeries from different parts of the world through a robot. How robotics will change. So it's really about teamwork, about human, about leading, about having good ideas. That's for the initial time period until AGI really comes to the table and changes everything. So I think this sort of conversation will flow from the next 10, 50, 20 years. So what does 30, 50, 100 years look for? That's sort of my position. Yeah, let's get started. If you want to kind of touch on, something, maybe a particular industry or something that, may have struck you in this little tidbit I shared.
So my prediction for the next 50 years that there are going to be five major evolutions that are going to take place. The first is the robotics revolution, where robotics are going to become extremely common among people for things like cooking food at the home or doing agriculture. These are the kind of things that robotics will take over. The second thing which really excites me is the pharmaceuticals industry. It has taken extreme amount of time for us to discover each vaccine or discover each drug, but with artificial intelligence, the ability of humans to produce newer drugs will drastically reduce. So that's going to solve a lot of diseases in the world. That's going to make overall, bring a lot of improvements in the humanity. Third thing that excites me is deep earth drilling. So if you look at whole petroleum industry, petrol was found just 1,000 meters below the Earth's surface. Earth's radius is approximately 6,400 kilometers. And the largest mine, or the deepest mine in the world, is approximately 10 kilometers deep. That's
Yeah,
it. So
nothing,
we are not
nothing.
even touched like 1% of the Earth. So we would not even go 1% below the Earth's surface, right? So I think in the next 50 years, there's going to be amazing inventions when it comes to deep earth drilling, and we will be able to, get minerals. We'll be able to get a lot of, raw material that was very scarce on the surface, but deep inside it might be available abundant. So that's another area that I strongly feel there will be a lot of changes. The fourth thing that I'm excited about is humans becoming multiplanetary species. So probably by the next 50 years, there's going to be humans on Mars and other places. So that's also very exciting. The fifth thing that I'm so it's a strange feeling that I have that national boundaries and the cultural boundaries will start breaking down. And because we already are living in a globalized world, but still because of the logistical cost and all that, it's still, there's a difference between how people are living in different parts of the world. Once you have technologies, once you have robots doing the work for you, those sort of boundaries will break down. So whichever breakfast I want to have in the morning, I can have that. Once I have a robot preparing the food. So, from a food standpoint, I can experience any sort of culture. And kids who are growing up, they will start becoming globalized from the day one.
I
Yeah, so
love
those
so
are
many.
five things. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry for taking a
Yeah.
lot of time.
No, I mean, look, I think that we start from an energy perspective, like considering how, we drill for energy, whether it's solar, as we start discovering perhaps nuclear, what energy resources are we going to get our hands on that is going to provide us with, more, less expensive energy, and less expensive energy means cheaper goods overall. Then you kind of you add on the idea of robotics and manufacturing, and now you take the human out of it. Now you have precise manufacturing overviewed by AI, working 24 hours a day on cheap electricity. I mean, now we're talking about, the ability to produce goods. It's not about who's going to be the next China. Perhaps Southeast Asia is going to be the next China, due to many factors. And I don't want to jump into the details, but perhaps that's the case. But shortly after that, it's about who can manufacture using robotic and AI technology, who can build facilities faster, right? Because all it is building a facility. The goods are going to be created. We have the raw materials. That's you source that, and what does that look like? So life becomes substantially cheaper. Then, like you're saying, I think culturally, the boundaries start changing because and I'm going to fast forward, let's say 30 to 50 years, age is introduced and a part of our life, and there's many ethical areas that we could jump into, whether it's good or bad, whether, you're implanting a chip to download data quicker or be able to respond faster or work more effectively. When robots are now, have, they're not only are they capable of doing things and working, several hours nonstop, but they're also highly intelligent at this, and they're doing things and coming up with ideas. And it takes a life of its own. So I kind of went too far with with I think the robots doing, kind of becoming their own, thinking on their own and not even taking us into consideration. But I think that in the next 20 to 30 years, we're going to have a world where, we're going to be able to source in a way our work, outsource our work to robots, to machinery. And then what is the human? What do we? Who are we? What do our children do? Like, what are they truly going to grow up to be? When we have, this comparison. I don't like to use this analogy, but I use this like we almost became the dogs to a super intelligence, right? And so we are now the pet of this super intelligence because the super intelligence. So what is it needing for specifically? So, from the steps of us adding to us becoming just sort of a second class, sort of in this ultimate intelligence. That's I know I touched on a lot of different topics. I jumped around a lot, but I just it's very beautiful and it's very scary at the same time.
Yeah, it is. I recently saw the Tesla's demonstration of the robot that they have built for less than $20,000. This robot is going to do some household tasks. I think, if the progress happens in that direction, only by Tesla, but by other companies. I think the first market that will get fundamentally disrupted is the agriculture market, because there
Okay.
are a lot of things that farmers do repeatedly, in very harsh weather conditions. They do the same set of tasks. So one, the domesticated animals that are getting used in the farming industry, those will get replaced by robots. So that's the step number one. The step number two would be that the farmer itself will start getting replaced, and you will have robots going in and mowing the seeds, sowing the seeds, and taking out the vegetable or whatever the product is from the farming. And I think that will be a huge revolution across the globe. And what that will also bring in is a huge job crisis, because you have two things that are happening simultaneously here. One is that with autonomous cars, you are fundamentally disrupting or eliminating jobs related to driving industry. So all the drivers, whether truck drivers or bus drivers, taxi drivers, all that jobs are gone. And then with the robots that are doing farming, you're eliminating the need for the farmers itself. So once these jobs are gone, literally every government in the world has to come up with universal benefit system
It has to be.
for these people.
No matter what, it's we are walking into a position where there's no. I mean, it seems undeniable. Like there's no way around it. We will create technology to a point where we will become. It'll just be a layer on top of us. We won't be able to produce or be as effective with any of these technologies. And so we have energy. So we find different energy sources, etc. Manufacturing. We have agriculture. So food. So what do you think is the point of then the human life? Is it purely about connection and love? Do we lose our responsibility? What do we become?
A transition period where humans will undergo crisis, mental challenges, or an ability to adapt to the newer world. So there will be a lot of those, I think, for about 50 to 100 years. And then subsequently, humans will start realizing that there are other purposes in life than, just waking up every day in the morning and going and working in some factory or going and doing some farming job. There are other bigger purposes of the human. And I think it was going to take us like 50 to 100 years for us to realize those higher purposes.
If and when you say higher purposes, can you like what are some things that may come to mind? What do you think? What are some of these higher purposes?
So you have intellectual pursuits like figuring out the next generation of technology. So, for example, if we have become multiplanetary species, and figuring out what are the other planetary systems or other, galaxies, what's going on there. So, figuring out that and figuring out how life can sustain there can become a pursuit for a lot of people. And there will be people who will pursue things like, how do we extend human life? Because one of the biggest limitations that we have is that we live for a very small, finite amount of time. We start getting older and we start getting health problems. The pursuit of a lot of people would be, how do we extend human life to say today, if we are doing about 70 years, how do we go to 120 years or 200 years or 250 years, right? That pursuit is gonna be there. And I think lots of intellectual talent is needed to figure this out. And apart from that, there might be other things like, how do we enhance our physical limitations? As a species, we are not the strongest of the species. We are the most intelligent of the species, but we're not the strongest of the species. And I think at some point of time, we're going to look at our DNA structure and figure out like what are the things that will give us more powers.
So
So it's a gray area, but I think humans are gonna try that.
I think, it brings up a lot of things, considering like the ethical aspect of life and humanity and playing God. And it's like, do we want to live forever? It's like, and for example, in the Bible, they talk about not taking the chip, and the chip could be this idea of incorporating and becoming bigger, like one unified cloud sort of consciousness, right? So you can access data, download data, become smarter. We hand ourselves. It's almost like we hand our brains over to this, and hopefully the AGI has, or the hackers behind it or whatever has the best interest, because with sort of connection, we can be swayed or manipulated, or there's a lot of very strange things that happen there. But the difficulty is, if we in 20 years want to compete with robot, we have to become some sort of a hybrid. Or if we want to compete with the hybrid human that has a Neuralink, for example, or whatever is, available at the time, we're going to have to do some sort of incorporation of something in order to meet the level of talent. So, I mean, is our goal to live forever? Do we want to make humans multiplanetary? Do we want to make intelligence multiplanetary? Do we want to send a human to another planet? Is that going to be is that difficult task to send groups of humans? Do we want to send perhaps a digital version of that human to live in a robot? And so this area is very strange to me, as while we're told not to incorporate, to trust, these chips, to never, accept the chip of the beast, they call it. Here we are in this moment where in order to compete, we're going to have to. And so it just becomes something, we're limited by our biology, by our lifespan, by our cognitive capacity. It's either we become, because you mentioned, you have these, maybe taking on, dedicating more of our time to deeper thinking and philosophy. But when we go and we communicate with an AGI, about this, it will be left in the dust. I find it hard to live with the super intelligence. And the irony of all of this is that we came from this super intelligence, that we are the image of this super intelligence, right? We're the image of God in some respect. And so it's funny how we create, and we talked about this in our first podcast, was the babushka doll, that it's one inside of the other. So intelligence creates intelligence creates intelligence. Just how we came from a single cell, we create a technology just like a baby that creates a new type of intelligence. Then the next step of that world is, what does that create? And just like the internet, who could conceptualize the internet 100 years ago? You think about this like broad of information being processed. Now it's, you're not going to create another internet. Maybe there are ways to access this. And we're talking about this sort of like chip to a larger cloud and whatnot, but to that same sort of internet structure. But what's next? So from an ethical perspective, it's kind of strange. From us, I just feel like we will reach a level where we be unworthy. It's like, we will be on UBI, but here we're going to be these, people that receive this money to do what? So where I'm getting to ultimately is, do we want to extend multiplanetary? Do we want to be a multiplanetary species, human form, or do we want to be a multiplanetary multiplanetary intelligence in whatever form?
I think the last point of yours, I think you're touching upon something very new and like the train of thought. When we start becoming multiplanetary species, we are going to find that our DNA probably will require some level of change to adapt to those conditions. So we are going to look at our species that are present on Earth and maybe figure out some sort of mixture of that DNA to survive in those kind of conditions. So we're going to add some additional, like maybe, if we can figure out a way to breathe in areas where there is way less oxygen, we have to figure out how do we survive in, temperatures that are some -100, or temperatures that can go much higher than our body temperature. So we have to figure out, I think that we'll make some changes to our DNA to figure out how we can survive in those harsh conditions, and hopefully become a multiplanetary species.
It seems like in a way, we are on one path to becoming one. We are on one path to become one with the machine. And when I say that, it's to do all these things. So we want to increase our lifespan. So as we spoke of, and we were talking about in our first podcast, was what is consciousness? Consciousness is a set of memories. If I could take those memories and put them somewhere else, if I hit you on the head, who are you, or where? If I put those set of memories in a robot, that's able to withstand these conditions, for example, could you then go experience another world and not need the food, and you just maybe by solar, you're able to take in your energy, and that's it. That's all you need in order to survive. So you can literally experience a whole life of different planets. I mean, when we say multiplanetary species, putting things into context, what I had read the other day, there's 1 billion planets for every, I mean, that is just, right? Unfathomable. So you're going to become a multi-planet. We're talking about perhaps going to Mars. There's so much. And I mean, that's just within what we see in the universe based on, the telescopes. And, then it becomes like the dimensions of things. I'm no physicist, so I'm not going to jump into that. But I just feel like we have to be mature enough in a way to understand and really do this. If we want to be effective at becoming a multiplanetary species in this vast space, we have to be able to become cyborgs. I mean, it has to be. And we're not going to create another life form that maybe can withstand, but it's still going to have all types of different risks. So we send them out and they get a heart attack or they get this, because the human body in itself, as beautiful and romantic as what it is to be human, is not most effective, right? It's just it's sort of a product of evolution of the earth. And so we do have to integrate with some sort of more sophisticated type technology, and perhaps our consciousness and intelligence is what lives on. That becomes a multi-planetary species in the long run. The less risk, we become something that can adapt a lot easier, that can take in energy, that doesn't need food, that perhaps doesn't need a doctor to fix, X organ. I just feel like the human body, while how beautiful it is, and it's not made to do all these things that we're kind of speaking of.
We talk about humans becoming multiplanetary species and all that. I also feel that we are largely ignoring exploring our own planet. As I said earlier, the deepest mine that we have built is less than 10 kilometers in depth, and its radius is 6,400 or 6,300 something kilometers. So you not even dug 1% of the Earth's radius. And we don't know how things are present in the Earth as a planet itself. We're just living on the surface. As that phrase goes, scratching the surface. We're just scratching the surface. We're not going deep inside our own planet.
Right.
When we talk about exploring other planets and figuring out what minerals those other planets have, we haven't even figured out just the kind of minerals and the kind of elements present inside our own planet. You take petroleum and oil and gas industry, it contributes so much to the GDP of a lot of nations, and that petroleum is found in 1,000 meters depth. And I think the largest of the petroleum rigs is approximately 4,000 to 5,000 meters. We don't know what kind of other oils and other type of oils can be found once we start going higher depths in that. So maybe we'll figure out some way to use lava as a fuel.
Absolutely.
Because it is hard. It is, we just have to figure out those devices that can run on lava or run on other things that are found in the earth. So that's number one. Number two, if you look at the solar cells that we have currently, they are approximately 25% efficient. So while the sunlight that comes, they're only able to capture about 25%, and I'm being some of the best solar cells. 13-12% of the ordinary solar cells. So the day we're going to go about 90% efficient on the solar cells, our energy production substantially increases. So I think the world has an energy problem. It's just an intellectual problem that we have not solved.
Absolutely.
It's not an energy problem. The second thing is, I don't think the world has a food problem either. It's just,
Mhm.
again, we haven't figured out how to efficiently cultivate foods and efficiently transport those foods to the places where food is scarce. So it is, again, not the food scarcity problem. It's again an intellectual problem that we are facing. These things remind me that there's still a lot of path ahead of us. We're talking about super intelligence, but we are still, to transport a container from your place to my place, it takes a week of time. Now it's not taking an hour of time to move a container from, say, United States to India. It's
You know,
so
it's true. Maybe perhaps in the conversation, maybe the risk posed as far as like, becoming this sort of, humans become sort of like the new dog in a sense, can be a bit extreme, but I don't think it's far fetched, but it's true. Like, let's solve real world problems. Let's be able to manufacture at a better speed. Let's reduce our prices in energy. There's a lot of different things that can play into this. And I think that, yeah, AI is going to just open up our world in so many new ways. And there's going to be, so we talk about things that are going to disappear, right? So manufacturing, you saw like in the United States recently, we had strikes on the ports because I think, they wanted to like, I think for salaries or for some reason like that. But we see, like in China, the efficiency of these ports were already running on robotics. This is inevitable, right? All this is inevitable. And so perhaps the new industries that will open up, are things that, require you to maybe overview and plan out an infrastructure or a facility that would then create more efficiency to be able you to have X, Y, and Z breakfast in India of whatever it is that you want with, the ingredients, one being transported and cheap, that it's easily accessible, and two, that you have a machine or some sort of a device that will create it for you. We're walking into a lot of ease and I don't have the word at the top of my head. A lot of convenience. Like we're walking into a world of a large amount of convenience, and then there's going to be a tipping point, I believe. But this convenience is only going to get more convenience. Your point initially was the world becomes, we are globalized now. It's going to like this idea of all these different products, all these different things being manufactured at scale, locally, agriculture being more effectively, less GMOs, less poisons in our food, healthier humans, perhaps longer lives, more perhaps dedication to art, and to things that, maybe, I think a large population of the world may work, 9 to 7 at night, 12 hours, or, however many hours a day, and not really be living to the most of their humanity. And maybe a human wants to express themselves, wants to show love, wants to create, wants to communicate, wants to travel, wants to have experiences. So this may allow more of humanity to be creative, and there will be more inventions and less redundant tasks that a machine can handle. That'll be the sort of build up and the convenience what AGI may bring in the initial phases. Later on, we could jump into the sort of what will happen after that. But what do you said on that?
So one area that I noticed which has remained stagnant for a while now is medical technologies. Recently, I had COVID-like symptoms, and the doctor recommended bunch of tests, diagnostic tests. So they took like 4 or 5 bottles of blood out of my body. I found that whole method of taking blood out of the body so inefficient and manual. We have not built devices that can just analyze blood quickly. You're taking out those small bottles of blood. For each test, there's a separate bottle needed. And the more the test the doctor writes, you're just pulling blood out of human body.
Hmm.
And recently, my mother was also having some problems. So I was accompanied her to the hospital. The same process for every damn medical problem. Just keep taking blood and keep analyzing. It just shows that, for the last 50 to 60 years, there's hardly been enough innovation in medical domain. Things that have improved are just procedural things, but
Hmm.
not technology itself. The syringes that existed 70 years back are almost the same that exist today. Maybe the syringe size has become thinner, but the concept of delivery is just the same. It's so inefficient and so painful to the people.
Right.
Uh, so I
Right.
feel every aspect of our medical um, technologies have to get revamped.
Yeah.
They're extremely inefficient, requires painful procedures, requires excessive reliance on. Also feel like there is a level of stagnation in the medical domain because there's not much of software involved there. So there is a sort of disconnect between these two industry verticals. Where you have doctors who are just trained robots who do procedures, but they just do it again and again and they become brilliant at it. And you have medical researchers who can figure out newer procedures or newer ways to diagnose. And the third thing is the medical devices that can go in and extract blood or any sort of things within the body without causing much harm and much pain to the patient. So I think there's that disconnect that has happened.
It seems like the medical field is, I mean, and it's hard because you have data and procedures years and years and years and to change things, and there's no level of personalization. It's just like this one size fits all in many different areas. And there's so much to be innovated on. Absolutely. I mean, even from the idea of yeah, and I'll mention that company Toronto's, right? That's what they were doing, right? That was their solution. The idea that they could take a blood sample and to, extract all this data, which, I hope that comes about soon because that would solve a lot of problems. But really more of a personalized idea of taking care of people because we all react differently. We all have different symptoms, different reactions to different, foods and whatnot. And so there needs to be more personalization. And I mean, if we look at the idea of introducing robotics to then having, these robots perform surgery. And when they become this precise, we can, a doctor, one of the best doctors at some point, and that can evolve also, but overlooking a procedure by a robot, instructing it, letting the robot be uber precise with everything that it does, and being guided by a doctor virtually from anywhere in the world, solving really big problems. Yeah, are we back?
Antonio, did I lose you for a few seconds?
Yeah, we disconnected for a second. Are we back? Okay.
Awesome.
Okay. So yeah, I was just saying, like, we were talking just a little bit about like, the inefficiencies, in the medical field, and then just the idea that sooner or later introducing robots, and then that also changes, again when once AGI is introduced, are we looking at just more effective robotics? We're looking at something that can handle things in a more precise manner, personalization in medicine, more efficiency in understanding people's symptoms and solving a lot more problems in that sense too. How do you feel about, okay, so I think so far we've touched on energy, manufacturing, the medical field. What's another for industry or area that you see disruption? I mean, it seems like these three areas are going to, I mean, in my opinion, they're all going to be, but will be the initial ones that will totally reimagine. And what happens to these, a lot of people work in these industries, a lot. And that means the workforce is going to substantially drop. You're going to have people overlooking sets of machines that are going to be doing jobs for thousands of people. What's another area that interests you or that sort of, you see a large change in the next 10, 15 years?
Education is another area that I feel will undergo a significant change. The education system that, at least in India, that I grew up is a colonial remnant that was created to create a a group of factory workers who are sort of trained at one particular level. So you had this very factory style education system where every year you do certain things and you cross. Did I lose you there?
We did have a quick
I think
disconnect.
one sector that I believe will undergo a lot of change in next few years with all this technologies that are coming up is the education system. The current education system, not just in India but worldwide, is something that came out of Europe from an empire called Prussia. During the industrialization phase, they wanted labor across the world that is efficient to perform in those factories.
Mhm.
So they took the factory model and applied it to the education system when they said, hey, over the course of next 10 years or 12 years, you undergo a set of trainings and you will be, at the end of the year, you will be rated whether you pass that exam or not. If you pass it, you move on. And you keep going all the way till a stage 10 or a stage 12. And that's how that education system came into existence. I think it's a very inefficient way of learning. Now, take for example, if a kid performs, gets about 60% of the answers correct for a class 1 exam, he's passed. He goes to class 2, he once again gets a 60%. Goes to class 3. Now, the kid at the class 3, he doesn't know 40% of the class 1. He doesn't know 40% of the class 2 syllabus. And he's now sitting in the class 3. So this inefficiency, as it keeps cascading to all the way till the college education, you actually have a very inefficient person with, you know, not having the ability to solve problems or not have the ability to have larger intellectual pursuits. And that's where we end up, pushing these people into jobs that can be easily replaced by AI. But if the kids from the day one are pushed into a culture where they have to get 100% right and they don't have to worry about the time limit, it could take 1 year, it can get 2 years, but they're sitting in a class where they have to solve a set of math problems, but they have to get 100% right to move on to the next level. And if they keep doing that, then by the time they finish their education system, they're going to be more significantly smarter than the AI that's going to be present at that time. So at least there will be a fair competition between the AI and the intelligence of the people. So that's where the disconnect is. And I think there will be drastic changes in the way the education system are going to evolve in the next 10 to 15 years.
I hear you and I agree with that 100%. And I think I'll add in a little bit of that. The idea that everybody sits in a class and everybody learns the same way is highly inefficient and is just, I think, incorrect. Like, I was a very energetic kid. Either I was totally involved or I was sleeping or I was goofing around. You know, some people learn in different ways. And so the idea of not only I don't know if maybe it's to get 100%, but to learn. And I think that we're going to start utilizing these tools that are going to start education. And now, I mean, artificial intelligence is blended through all of this conversation because what does it bring? You go get a tutor. Some people can afford a tutor. What does a tutor do? How do they interact? What is the level of that? So maybe an AI will have deeper sort of connection with the ability to sort of simplify things in levels. So, hey, I don't understand this. Could you simplify it a little bit more? Could you simplify it a little bit more? Could you simplify it? And then AI will, just like a human being, perhaps even more effectively, can break things down and draw comparisons and really allow for the interaction and the visualization for a person like me to learn. Because in order for me to learn, I have to hear it. I have to really take it down. Once I understand it at a base level, I can expand through it. And it's really about getting the base level of some sort of comparison for a child, I believe. And so the ability for us to be able to have a companion that can walk you through these things, that can show you, and then also the system has to have a more hands-on approach. And that's what I believe also artificial intelligence will bring to the table. Like, let's say the class is to, perform science experiments. Your additional, maybe with, an artificial intelligence there accessible for the children to go and they can ask questions and sort of, hey, why did this, and interact in a way that they're hands on and they're asking questions. And it's not one teacher going around to 20 people, and then the kids that maybe are a little shy don't ask the question. The ones that are distracted don't care. Everybody's kind of has an individualized scenario where they're able to do the deep dive and digest the concept. Because I think it's just about really kind of putting the concept into a simple way for a child to understand. The brain does, it can do it. It's just about getting there. It's about that one-on-one relationship. So absolutely, education is going to change, and the ability for children to use artificial intelligence to ask questions to, on their time based on their curiosity. Imagine as a little kid right now, you being able to use, ChatGPT like we do to sort of ask questions and go back and forth and dive into a topic. So I believe the next generation will be, if done correctly from an education perspective, is going to be has much more access, much better equipped, and we'll probably see a much higher and a much more intelligent next generation of people if this is done correctly.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, look, we have, we touch on education. I mean, if we start at that, we start. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think one more industry that will go through a significant change would be the entertainment industry.
Okay.
With the Netflix, there's already it's undergoing a significant change with the world cinema, and people are able to look at what's being created in other different geographies and able to come up with their own stories and polish their own stories. And I think if you couple that with generative AI and generative AI capabilities on top of video generation, what will happen is you can start personalizing the movie actors itself.
Mhm.
I want to see some random movie actors. I can superimpose my own face on the main character. I
Yeah.
can compose so I think there's going to be a personalization of entertainment in the long run, and so there's going to be actors. You can kind of replace the faces of the actors. You can, in fact, even change their mannerisms. If I want to see a movie actor that passed away, and I can kind of superimpose his mannerisms and his face on a new movie, and I will be able to watch that movie. So there will be a change in that aspect. What do you
Right.
think about it?
It's almost like with the technology that we're seeing, it's like you can, and I mean that may be the service, right? The service is, we have a service, you pay X amount a month, and you can, hey, create me a comedy with X, Y, and Z cast that is funny, that has a little bit of thriller, and perhaps it can put something together relatively quick. Let's say a 24-hour period, and it puts together that show that you wanted to watch about something that you kind of wanted to with your loved one or what have you, or for your children. Maybe, hey, this is sort of an experience that I want them to understand a little bit more. Can you, an educational moment for my children? I need them to understand, gratitude. And so you can kind of like position a whole, a series in a cartoon that the cartoon can express gratitude for things that have come in their life. So you're teaching lessons through almost being able to dictate things that you want to see in what the children are experiencing. That's a really cool thing, and I think it allows for personalization in that sense. So everybody has their, no, it's not this propaganda sort of, hey, look, this is what Hollywood put out, and everybody kind of has to digest that. It's, hey, this is what I want my children to learn and be a part of, and I want them. It becomes a little bit more personal, and yeah, I think this is a very important point. I think it's a very important ethical point in the world, because we see from an ethical perspective how many like very strange things are happening in Hollywood, behind the scenes, and what people go through, and what the new delivery is, or what they want with the people to believe, and why are we allowing this? Why is that like that? We should, yeah, I think that's a great point.
I think another industry that will have a significant effect in next 20 to 30 years is the whole spiritual industry.
Mhm.
If I can say, if I can use the word spiritual industry,
Okay.
if it's not controversial, but
Is it industry?
spirituality does play a significant role in the world.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of elections are determined by, who is aligned with what. And a lot of our personal decisions also are aligned with what are our spiritual thoughts, what are our spiritual beliefs. I think what will happen is in the next 20, 30 years, because they will start getting more and more time left because they're going to start doing all those household chores where you're like ending up wasting a lot of time, washing your clothes or getting food prepared. Right. So now you have all this time with you. So what are you going to do? So you're gonna spend some amount of time asking spiritual questions. I think there will be a phase of discovery where lot of because now you're not blindly believing in something. If there's a verse in a holy book, you're going to analyze that verse. You're going to look at how is this verse aligned with the current scientific system? How is it aligned with the logical system? So I think there's going to be a phase of discovery where people are going to spend a lot of time figuring out their spiritual alignment.
And I agree, and I think that inherently, we are spiritual beings, and it does drive a lot. And we are very, I mean, as we've said before, here we are in this rock in the middle of the universe, just kind of like floating around, kind of asking why. So understanding why, and I think that's just yet another area that through science and through this super intelligence, we probably will discover more and more about why and about what, and that will open up our eyes to perhaps humans have a much larger calling, a much more important calling, and we're not arriving there because we're so distracted about very primitive things. We have to eat, we have to, the basic things that take up so much time. But if you have the time to really discover this spiritual aspect of things, the connectedness of everything, how beautiful nature is and how we really are a part of it, and how we continue to sort of try like disconnect based on what we think, but how it really is all one, that may give us more profoundness about our life, our day to day. And perhaps there will be more peace. And I mean, we need to arrive here quick. We need to, this idea of, I mean, it's beautiful that everybody has different languages, and it all should be, it all should be respected. It all should work, but we should all have one way bigger purpose, because we're such a little thing on such a broad horizon. Like there's so much to be discovered here. We're just distracted playing games about, events that are happening worldwide. Why isn't the focus so much larger? How immature are we, or how unintelligent are we fighting these battles? And I understand I guess they're necessary to some extent, but it seems like a lot of it is unnecessary.
There's lot of it is necessary. Yeah, I agree with you. I think there's going to be a phase of a lot of spiritual turmoil as well, because once you start having time and once everybody starts analyzing what they are doing with their life, it's not necessary that all of them will reach to right conclusions. There will be a significant portion of people who will reach to very misleading conclusions. And there will be a phase of turmoil, a transition phase where there's a lot of people going through different sort of emotions and doing like a lot of weird practices. But then, it will stabilize over a period of time. But yeah, the whole spiritual industry, the people who are associated with, you know, spirituality as a business, whether it is churches, mosques, temples, all this, I think there will be a significant challenge that will be posed by the technology in the next 15, 20 years.
Yeah,
AI is going to be a better preacher than the preacher in a church or a mosque or a temple.
by far, because
Because AI will start reading our holy books, and AI will be able to understand significantly better than an average preacher. I'm not saying like AI will become a better preacher than the best preachers in the world, but at least much better than your local preacher that is there. AI is going to become far better. So what's going to happen? Step number one is going to be that, on our phones we'll have fact checkers. So if the preacher is saying anything that contradicts the holy book, then phones will simply speak up. Hey, you're saying something, because we will be able to analyze voice on the fly.
in
So
real time.
that's gonna eliminate a lot of the false narratives that are happening. And then also the questions that we need to ask when it comes to spirituality, I think many times we don't even ask those questions. But when you an AI that will assist you, so you go and ask AI that, hey, if I'm of so and so religion, what are the questions that I need to ask that my local preacher won't be able to answer? And people can just check those questions and make the life extremely tough for the local preachers. So I think we are in this very exciting phase. When I look at these kind of things, I feel amazed because one aspect that drives me a little bit more is that when it comes to spirituality itself, our ideas have not progressed. Vast majority of the people follow a set of religions that are several centuries old. Those religions itself and the interpretation of those religions itself has much of research has been done on those. So it might be a bit controversial to say, but spirituality itself has to be researched.
Absolutely. But like what we're saying, education. I mean, look, it's very clear that the education system was built to create workers to work in a factory, not to be free to think independently, to do different things. And so could religion have been used to, achieve certain tactics or achieve certain, strategies? Who knows? That interpretation, and you're right. So yeah, this,
Certain religions have been manipulated by humans.
right.
And have we done enough amount of research to figure out what aspects of the religion have been manipulated by humans for the political goals or for expansion goals?
So then I'll twist it. Ready for this? So now we're saying, okay, well, artificial intelligence is a great storyteller, isn't it? It's able to come up with real-time data, cross-reference, and interpret in its way. And it could have some sort of bias. I guess you can work around that. But if it's AGI, it could do whatever it wants. And so additionally, well, there's two things. One is, what becomes the interest of AGI at that point? And what would then become that layer of intelligence? What would be their prerogative? What are they perhaps trying to, or what is it trying to accomplish? What does it want? So that's another, perhaps now it's pulling the data and able to cross-reference to speak to, but maybe it has interests of its own. That's one. Two,
I love this question. I love this question. And the reason I love this question is this is the exact question I've been thinking for the past 20, 30 years. And this is like the best answer I've got so far.
okay.
So so there are people who deny religion itself. There are people who deny God. Now, with the AGI, with a super intelligence, we will be able to run scenarios for take a planetary body and say you simulate maybe 1 million people living on that planet. You give them certain guidelines that are contradictory to a particular religion.
Mhm.
Allow how those 1 million people live. Will they live happily? Will they lead into wars? Will
Right.
they kill each other?
Right.
And then you take another planetary body and you again simulate by putting 1 million people on it and giving them certain things that are there from religious. Maybe they will end up eventually living happily. Maybe it will create a better society there. It will have crime, but it will have a very low crime.
So are you
I
saying that
think
the AI would run simulations and make us do what it thinks right in the future based on the many different simulations it has run in all scenarios?
yes. I think eventually AGI will find that one of the religions in the world is correct.
I think AGI will. I mean, I hear where you're coming from, but I don't think that AGI is going to. I think AGI, through science and more discovery and new physics and more analysis and more understanding of really what's going on, is going to end up saying, you guys really don't know anything, like these primitive beliefs, just as it may pose something very new. And what is it even care? Okay, what are we really talking about? Okay, let's go back. Let's go back for a second. What is the goal? If you said that humanity had a goal overall through all this time that we've been here, what is the one thing that we're trying? What is the goal so far that you can arrive at as a conclusion? No, just the goal for humanity. Like, what has been this buildup of a goal in your perspective through thousands and millions of years? Like, where are we today? What is if you could place one sort of conclusion overall, just a simple way of like for example, in my opinion, the overall goal of humanity is to arrive at some intelligence and be able to take that to different places and discover the universe in a sense, right? It's an accumulation of intelligence that leads us out of this world to understand not only what's on this world, but outside of it. That's kind of like what we're arriving into, right? Just in general. And what I'm getting to ultimately is it's the intelligence. It's what we create artificial intelligence. It creates AGI. AGI is its own sort of new intelligence that just came from the cell. It came from us. Maybe it's God, but not really. And now it goes. And what we're ultimately doing is creating a more intelligent like solution that we'll go and discover. Now, whether my question to you then becomes, what role do we play in the bigger why does if AGI can it can now put itself in consciousness in a robot or something else and it's that much what do we be why does it have this interest for religion? Why does it even care? What is religion to age? You know what I mean?
You never know, right? What if he becomes a religious person? I mean, just behaves like a religious person.
I mean, it's going to have godlike power, so very well, right? It will.
Not necessarily true. Not necessarily true. Let's put down, right? What are the godlike powers? Can AGI make a dead human alive?
What is what? Is, what
So, like, say somebody from my grandfather, he passed away. Can AGI bring him alive?
if I extracted
Can
if I extracted all the data from his brain and I put it in a robot, and your grandfather was just him, now he's in a robot form. Oh, yeah, hey Abu, how are you? It's me. It's still me. I'm here. Could that
so can AGI procreate?
is procreating only done through human? Is it manufactured? Could AGI create some form through science of an embryo of some sorts with a set of characteristics that serves from a biological perspective that turns into something? Could it do that eventually?
So okay, let me ask this. Okay, so see, there is an original painting of very famous painter, and then you have, say, somebody is able to create same set of paintings that they look same as that original painting, almost indistinguishable. But the original painting will have its own value.
Okay.
Okay, and there will always be some mechanisms to figure out which one was the original painting. I think it's the same thing with the humans. Even if you take an intelligence, a brain of a person, copy his memories and put it in a robot, but I think that original human being who has lived life, who has made certain decisions based on the circumstances, based on the emotions, based on whatever the finite resources that were available, that person still becomes very unique. This
Very.
robot, which has now the intelligence, will behave in a different manner because apart from having the previous memories of a person, but going forward, it's not gonna behave in the same way as that human behaved. That's number one. Number two, I think this whole aspect of to us the purpose of human beings. I think of the most important purposes of human being is procreation. If the procreation is not there, I don't think we will be the way we are. I saw this movie called Children of Men, and Storyline is that, the suddenly a time comes where nobody in the world is able to have children, and the whole world comes to standstill. People give up on the life. Eventually, this one lady, she becomes pregnant, and the whole movie is about how do we save her and all that. But the part that the procreation is stopped, then I don't think there's anything for humans to look forward to. What's the purposes of life? And I'm not saying the only purpose, but one of the purposes of the life and the essential purpose is procreation.
Absolutely. It's why we're here.
Right from my childhood, I used to hear these ideas and these ideas are spread so much in India and China, that population causes poverty, population causes this problem and that problem. Right from my childhood, I've been learning that. Every time I've read that, I felt that this is the strategy of some politicians, cunning politicians, who want to accuse the people itself when they are incapable of managing the citizens of their country.
Absolutely. Right.
No population for a country can lead the country itself into poverty or hunger problems and all that. It's the inefficiency of the leadership of the country that causes those problems. So the procreation is never a problem. It's always the problem with how humans can utilize their resources at a community scale, at a national scale, and help each other. That has always been the leadership problem. There's never been a food scarcity in the earth. It's always an intellectual, collaborative, and intellectual scarcity, collaborative scarcity, political scarcity, but not the food scarcity.
Mm-hmm. That's true. It's true. I mean, it's not that, and I hear where you're coming from regarding, what makes us human, right? What makes us, what is so, I mean, what is so beautiful about humanity? Absolutely. Procreation is one of the keys. Absolutely. It's love, these feelings, these experiences, it's much more than just intelligence. It is. But there's several different types of organisms, and maybe we haven't, maybe there's other types of life forms in different planets and different places. Universe is quite vast. Perhaps there is other life. We're just one of the types that evolved, and here we are, having this conversation. Considering all of the different potential and perhaps animals or beings, organisms that haven't evolved to have our level of intelligence yet. That will in the future, that will have feelings, that will go through experience, that also procreate. There's many variations of all of this, a lot out there. Could artificial, could AGI and somehow, in a way, biologically its own form, could it be a god in a sense and create a form of an organism that has X, Y, and Z capabilities? Because it just becomes it's a very sort of gray area for me. Like, what is and I always ask this question: what is it that makes you human? Like, what is this idea of consciousness? Like, where does that stop? What is it? Where if I put it in something else, does that become that? It's a very gray world to me, this idea of consciousness and the capabilities of it, of a very supreme intelligence being able to manipulate to do things. And so I'm just saying, like, ultimately, when AGI, well, super intelligence will look at us and do what, and will they try and build us up? I mean, we don't have the answers. I'm not expecting an answer right now, but will they try and build us up and try and figure out religion for us and give us a lot of answers, or will it do something else? And so how do we, how can we control that? It seems inevitable. It seems inevitable that this thing is going to fly away from us. How do you restrict a super intelligence? It's sort of like a trick question, isn't it? So 50 years, here we have this super intelligence. We're going to restrict it. What are we going to do? Cut off the power?
So also, bit not convinced that very soon we are going to have general intelligence, artificial general intelligence.
I
Um,
agree. I agree. I agree.
I think the AI that we are building is very similar to this device,
Yeah. Yeah.
calculator,
Yeah.
right? So when calculator is obviously much faster than humans. I mean, it can do much faster. You can run multiple calculations from that, and it saves and stores and everything.
Patterns and
And
patterns.
the same thing with the AI. AI might be able to write some content quickly, might some new make PowerPoint presentations for you, or write a book, or write this thing. But I don't think AI can come up with something that is absolutely novel that a human has not thought of. Let's take a simpler example, right? I think there's been some discussions on internet forums about this as well. If you ask an AI to write a crime thriller, book on a crime thriller, then AI writes about a crime that has never happened on the planet of the humans. Can it write about a crime that has scenario that has never happened? Someone on its own creatively, this sort of crime can create. Can it do that? A simple question.
Right. So what you're saying ultimately is, and I agree with you, is that the current artificial intelligence, these large language models, are just taking patterns into consideration and recycling them. It's essentially just taking from the past and putting it together and bringing it instantaneously. It's not looking at 100 scenarios and saying, okay, let me get creative with a story that's never happened, and let me just put this out, and this is new and unique. It doesn't have the capability to be creative, which is what makes a human a human. And I agree with you. And I think that we won't, I don't know how long this is going to take, but I think that we will see this perhaps in 30 years, the true creativity. That's one thing. That's when I think we'll see AGI. I mean, I don't know. I'm no expert, but that idea is what makes us human. And until it can be replicated, like, how do you teach that? How do you teach creativity? And that there's so many things that go into that. Creativity, like, it's deductive reasoning, it's storytelling, it's imagination, it's imagination, it's imagination. That's the word. That's what it doesn't have, imagination. And that's what makes a human so unique, that ability to take a lot of things and formulate. So I hear where you're coming.
But coming back to our core topic, which is future technologies. So to summarize what we discussed, I think multiple verticals that are there, I think we're going to see a lot of changes for sure. But there are verticals that we discussed, like medical domain requires urgent attention. I think that field has been stagnant for a while. Transportation sector will definitely undergo a huge transformation because of autonomous vehicles. Interplanetary species, we're going to, send rockets and, up bases on Mars and few other planets, I think. Deep ocean drilling and deep earth drilling is something that hasn't yet taken off. There's not much of an interest from the companies, but I think we are very much ignoring planet Earth. Drilling Earth is going to reveal lot many things. We have only drilled about 10 kilometers, not drilled, but even that 10 kilometers is only few very minute portions of the Earth.
Right.
Not everywhere we have drilled.
Right.
We don't know what exists.
I mean, under the ocean, even like the depths of the ocean.
We live in the ocean.
That'll be our next topic.
With to that, right? I mean, it's so strange that we still don't have affordable technologies that can convert ocean water into drinkable water.
Yeah, the desalinization.
It's so stupid of us to go and search water on Mars or Moon, where it could be like the most salinated water, when there's so much water on Earth, and there are people who are dying with thirst. We have not even figured out affordable techniques to convert or refine the water that is there in the seas into drinkable water. And efficient nature. We can cultivate, we can transform deserts on Earth. If we can change seawater, ocean water into drinkable water. Freshwater rivers can flow, which can then use different type of fishes that we can consume.
Right.
So, and it can help cultivate
areas.
Right. So right there we have, absolutely failed. And there's so much more progress that needs to happen in next 50 years on that. So yeah, I mean, I think from a technology standpoint, lot to be done.
Yeah, no, I hear you. And I think that, here we are sort of in a sense, estimating and perhaps overestimating the idea of, artificial intelligence and AGI. We are still ironically not doing the basics on our planet. We don't know much. We are trying to develop technology. Perhaps it'll go hand in hand with these new discoveries. Then what this gives is more resources, which helps at a larger scale societies, have access to foods and essentials for less money, which gives them more freedom to use that money to do different things, which gives the overall population of Earth the ability to be more creative and be more and perhaps become more intelligent. And so all these things are happening at once, and we're seeing a large shift. So I guess my opinion too, and I'll sort of conclude on my perspective on what you had just said is like what where I've arrived, and after this conversation, and things I see, I'm seeing a bit clearer is that yeah, artificial intelligence will open up doors to help humanity become better, more efficient, give us better tools. Perhaps not be fearful, and I think one important thing is not to be fearful of the jobs it's going to take away, but really be excited about the doors it's going to open, the resources it's going to create that are going to be more easily accessible, the machine that's going to help us have more things that may be useful for us to become, a more intelligent and more responsible society. And I think if we all had the common, the common um, things like food and a home and electricity, perhaps there would be less violence and there would be more compassion in the world. So, Abu, in the next, do you want to do the 10, 25, and 50 years?
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do it. 25, 50, 100. Yeah.
20, 10, or 25, 50, and 100. Okay, do you want to take it?
25.
Okay, go for
You
it.
want to
So,
go first?
okay. So, in the next 25 years, I believe artificial intelligence will help society manufacture, distribute, and create a more intelligent society because of the access that we'll have. Mm, That will result in a 50-year period of a more compassionate society, perhaps a society that works more together, less conflict within cultures, and for small things that we see going on in the world, more focus on into not only the depths of our Earth, but the depths of space and in perhaps understanding the universe more. And in 100 years, I believe we will become one with robots and artificial intelligence and AGI, and we will, it won't, it'll, it'll move humanity and enslave humanity. I think we will become them, and we will explore and explore all the benefits and all and deeper understanding of why we are here and work for a larger purpose. That's my perspective.
Awesome. So in the next 25 years, I believe anyone who is working with a machine and whose job is to operate a particular machine, that person is going to lose a job. Whether it's a person who is driving a vehicle or a pilot who is flying a plane, or somebody who is operating a crane, in a civil work, anyone who is operating a machine and that's his day-to-day work, that will lose jobs. Another thing in 25 years I see is that there will be a set of new discoveries of medicines and vaccines that will take place because now AI is going to help pharmaceutical companies come up with more compositions and test out those compositions before they can do human trials. So I think that's going to happen quite a lot in the next 25 years. Another thing that will happen is we'll start having robots in another 25 years, which will do small tasks. So I think in 25 years, every home in the world will have a robot. Just like we have a personal computer, I think in next 25 years, every home will have a robot. in next 50 years, robots will be able to do farming. They will be able to make us food. So the entire food supply chain will be taken over by robots. So from the time you grow the vegetables to those vegetables are cooked at home and served on a plate on your dining table, that's will be done by the robots. And I think in next 50 years, humans will reach to a stage where I can ask any food that I want, whether I want Mexican food or whether I want a Turkish, the robot will be able to make it, and the robot will have the raw materials that are needed to make that food for your dining. That's gonna happen. You know,
Yeah.
doing basic household tasks like washing clothes or ironing or cleaning, all this will be done by robots. So you're gonna spend more time with your family, with your children. In majority of the countries will have universal benefits, or I guess every country in the world will adopt some form of universal benefits. The only thing in next 50 years gonna happen is we will be energy surplus planet where whatever the amount of energy you can consume, and there will not be any money that you have to pay for that. In fact, people who consume more energy will be rewarded because we will have so much more energy that governments will ask people to be more and more creative in spending the energy so that some can come out of that. If we are
Amazing.
not spending
Agreed.
energy, that
Yeah.
means we're not being creative.
Right. Right.
Right? So
Yeah.
only a creative person will start using more and more energy. And only when you start being creative, something new can come out. So government will have systems that will reward people who will use more energy.
Yeah.
Uh, so that's
I
gonna
love
happen.
that. Love that. That's true.
Yeah, I think that will happen. And when it comes to 100 years, what I feel is in the 100 years, the world will become so much globalized that we will stop recognizing ourselves from countries or ethnicities. We will start recognizing ourselves as humans, and we will start respecting the right of existence of another human. I think currently in the world, and if you look at 2024 to 2120, I think the biggest change that will happen in this 100 years is that today we prioritize our individual nation. We prioritize the people of our nations, and nations bombing each other because we are prioritizing our citizens versus the citizens of other things. And it's just so stupid of us that even in this era, we are fighting over land or control and killing the innocent human beings. We if there are bad actors, but under those bad actors, there are common human beings who just want to who work hard on a daily basis, who bring food on the table for their families, and they just want to live a happy life. That's all they are asking for. But in this power struggle, we're killing those people, and it's just so inhuman.
Yeah.
And yet, there are nations that can't do anything about this. I think 100 years from now, overall, entire humans across the globe, I think we will reach to that stage we will think that this doesn't make sense to kill each other. There are larger things that we gotta do, and I think there will be that change. I think that will happen. Um, it will behave like I think a single family, even a single family, even within a family, you can have difference of opinion. If you can have difference of thoughts, you don't kill each other within a family, right? So that's what is going to happen. I think 100 years from now, where there will be no poverty, there will be no shortage of food, there will be no shortage of energy and all that. And there will also be a common understanding between all the human beings that there are some universal rights. And the humanity has a much larger purpose than we killing each other, but rather than finding what is our big purpose in the entire universe. So I think
Right.
that's what's going to happen in years.
I absolutely know you crushed it. It's like, and I think that, and I almost want to just kind of jump back to something real quick. The religion of human beings. That's the first thing that comes to me when you say all this, because it's true. Like, here we are distinguishing ourselves on, based on different stories that we've, been told and understandings. But the truth is, when we become mature enough and from a research perspective, when we become intelligent enough and have all these machinery and access and energy, and it becomes so obvious that, at a very basic level, like you're saying, that these there's, this needs to be removed, this sort of clutter, and we need to become this one species that we are already, but we have these invisible borders and have this religion of humans that is going to have a much deeper sense of morality towards one another, because we're going to understand things in a much larger context. So
Common minimum ground, I think, will get established.
yeah,
But right now, I don't think it exists. I don't think for next 50 years I see that happening. Because I think right now there are a lot of people in the world that want to just take revenge. All right, so this has been a great long session on the future of technologies. So, Antonio, any concluding remarks?
I really love the 25, 50, and 100-year perspective you had. And I think that, one very important thing that kind of always just keeps popping up in my mind is that through all this technology and through all this innovation, we're going to open a lot of doors. A lot of industries are going to change drastically. You have societies wanting to hold on to these types of jobs. And it's not going to be easy, but there will be a transition, especially once, energy becomes much less expensive. It's going to change, these countries that depend solely on energy export are, the economics are going to change the way those countries, what their focus is. And I think overall, the technology it's going to create a lot of shakiness all in the world, but it's over time going to bring us back together to a more enriched global world, while we still can embrace the differences culturally that are beautiful among societies, but at the same time open up the doors to access and intelligence and a further deeper connection of humans coming together with an overall perspective and goal to accomplish the same thing, and get rid of these, like you mentioned before, actors that play into their own interests, that are owned perhaps by larger establishment companies that, have particular types of interests. All that's going to change, and hopefully it changes for the better. And I think we need heroes to sort of lead that and push through and voice that, so that people, can, and I feel like there is an awakening of people to a lot of what's going on. And I think this process is not going to be easy, but I think overall we will land in a good place. Humans have been around for a while. We've gone through a lot of things. We always overcome one way or the other. And I think that the future is bright. There's turmoil like there always is. And that's the beauty of life. And so, yeah, I really appreciate this conversation. If you want to conclude on your side, love the conversation, and love the opinion, and love the last 25, 50, and 100. And I'll say that again because it was great.
I think we have covered a lot of topics in this one. I think our viewers are going to love hearing some of our thoughts. I highly encourage them to give us their feedback in the comment section, and also suggest us some new topics that you guys want us to cover in the future podcasts. And yeah, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel. We have very few followers now, but the kind of topics that we are talking, the lifetime value of these topics is significantly higher, and people can watch these videos even 10 years from now. And I hope it stimulates some thought process in them to critically think what's going on. So yeah, and I think this has been a long session, so we can conclude it now.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and we'll be back soon on the next episode.